even if the bond is extinguished by the expropriation, they still regard the debt as owing. And they talk about, well, the client would still be liable to pay, even if this is on an unsecured basis. That is a very worrying prospect. As I say, I don't have 1.5 million rand to settle a debt, and if that sort of debt is remains hanging over me, I would never recover.
What is the position of South Africa's banks with regards to expropriation without compensation? And more specifically, will South African bondholders be expected to repay their loans in the event of their property being expropriated for nil compensation? This is a question that Terence Corrigan of the Institute of Race Relations is asking of the Banking Association. Terence joins us to discuss. Terence, what was the thrust of the press release that you put out yesterday morning seeking clarity from the Banking Association?
Right. This is really about taking what has up to this point been a substantively conceptual debate and making it real. I think that there's fairly wide acknowledgement by people with economic sense that going down the EWC policy rabbit hole, undermining property rights and whatever, is not going to play well for the economy. There's been some modelling about this based on historical precedents, and it's not not a happy picture. We're trying to take it from the general and the abstract into the specifics. How will this play out? Our operating assumption is that both the expropriation bill and the constitutional amendment are likely to be passed. I think that it's going to be a tortuous process, but at the end of the day, I think that for ideological reasons, the government and the African National Congress are going to force us through. So, question here that I think will confront hundreds of thousands of South African households and millions of South Africa's people. What will the effect be on them if their property is expropriated, either at nil compensation, as the bill sets out, just sort of a way to avoid the expropriation without compensation formula, or as the bill seems to be gunning for, at substantively below market compensation. Now, home loans will generally be issued in some with some reference to the market value, if only because that is what the client needs to pay to acquire the property. You're talking periods of 20 years or whatever, for many of which you are paying interest as opposed to the principal. And for most households, this is the largest single investment they will ever make: 1, 2, 3, 4 million rand. And as I say, for a fairly long lead time, you're essentially paying interest. So if your property is requisitioned, if you are then offered a compensation package which is substantively below the amount on your bond, what is the impact on you? Now, the banking industry, financial institutions advance this money in the hope of making a profit. Yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship. But good corporate governance, ethical corporate governance, which South Africa has been a leader, makes it very clear that the bottom line or profit alone cannot be the only, let alone or even the dominant consideration for a business. It's also responsible for the clients it services, for the society in which it operates. So our question is very simple to the Banking Association: in the event that your client's property is taken and they are saddled with large debts, what is your position? I think we can safely say that the government has no interest in meeting those costs. You read the text of the expropriation bill; they talk about how whatever compensation they're offered, if there is an encumbrance on it, must be negotiated between the various parties. But let's say you're still in hock for 2 million of a home loan. Government offers you 500,000. Well, that's a difference of 1.5 million rand. I don't know about you, but I don't have 1.5 million lying around, and I imagine that if this has been taken over, if there's also, let's say, 15 years left on the bond, that is a massive and a potentially crippling sum of money. Now, will the financial institutions of this country then insist that they have some sort of first call on that debt. You will see people ruined, and we want to know exactly what the bank's position here is.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
Terence, have you received any official response from the Banking Association?
We have. They've essentially acknowledged them, said that they've made a submission on the matter, on the bill, and until there is legislative certainty, I believe that's the exact formulation they used, they don't intend to comment any further. We would say, though, that by the time you have that legislative certainty, any hope of actually altering it has gone out the window. Looking at their submission, what the approach appears to be is that they would still regard, and this gels with a few other previous comments that have come from the financial services industry, that they regard, even if the bond is extinguished by the expropriation, they still regard the debt as owing. They talk about, well, the client would still be liable to pay even if this is on an unsecured basis. Now that is a very worrying prospect. As I say, I don't have 1.5 million rand to settle a debt, and if that sort of debt is remains hanging over me, I would never recover. Would banks perhaps look at going after other assets to make up their shortfall? These are very, very concerning questions. They hold money in stewardship for their clients, and they have a responsibility to be forthright. They say. We hear a lot of business people talking about the need for certainty. I think clients need that as well. We have incidentally also approached Minister DeLille's office to try and get clarity there, and although we have had a response, it hasn't addressed the issue directly.
How do we explain the conduct of the banks in this context? Why are they taking this position? Do you think that this strategy is the right one in terms of their own interests?
Look, obviously, I think that someone from the banking industry would need to address that, and what I say is necessarily speculation. But banking is a highly regulated industry. I think that there is an inherent conservatism and an inherent reluctance to challenge the state, since it holds that enormous regulatory power. I think that you also see something a lot simpler, which is simply that banks, like any businesses, have particular institutional interests, and I imagine this is probably what they're looking to secure in the first instance. So if the asset for which they have advanced money is confiscated, they will look in the first instance to protecting their own exposure. In a way, one can understand that, but as I say, it does sit very uncomfortably with the whole thrust of a corporate governance thinking that has come out of South Africa, the various King reports and whatever. So yes, that would be my sense of things. Something else I'd just like to raise is that in 2019, the Presidential Panel on Land Reform released its report, which endorsed EWC as a strategy and seemed to, I think, perhaps more worryingly, seemed to suggest that the idea of market-based compensation needed to be dispensed with. The state needed to get what it wanted at whatever it could afford or whatever it was prepared to pay. This was signed by the Agbiz representative, the Agricultural Business Chamber. Now, banks are members of the Agricultural Business Chamber, and I'm not aware of any of them having objected to this. What is their motivation? There's a part of me that can't help but wonder if this is not, if before the interests of their clients is the idea of appeasing the state. This may make business sense, but I think that they're dread. Although I think that the damage that it will do would undermine whatever short-term business advantage you may gain. But I think that the ethical questions are extremely, extremely important and need to be addressed.
Well, thanks very much, Terence. This may be a case of feeding the crocodile and hoping that he will eat you last. My name is David Ansara. This is the Center for Risk Analysis. Please leave your comment below. Do you think that the banks are providing sufficient clarity on their position towards EWC? Until next time, take care.